Welcome in, everybody. It's Big 12 football and beyond. I appreciate everybody joining us. We just got done with Pac 12 football and beyond. We're going to have an hour of Big 12 talk here as we've got a big matchup this weekend. Texas and Oklahoma, the Red River rivalry, Red River shootout. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thinks it's going to be a more interesting game than I thought. Back in the summer. It's shaping up to be a really good one. What do we have in store today? We're going to run through a few news and notes of the day, of the week. We're going to recap all the games, everything that took place in the games of this past week. We're going to hand out some game balls. I'm going to tell you what looked at from inside the film room and take you through some of those games that are coming up this week. A reminder of a few things. If you are watching this show live on Twitch TV, we appreciate it. Sign up, if you would, for Big 12 football and beyond, Pac-12 football and beyond, Big 10 football and beyond, the Landry Football Podcast. Do that for us. It will help our numbers. It will improve a lot of what we're doing, and we'd very much appreciate it. If you are listening to this podcast, we encourage you to join us in the chat room. Love to hear from you. Love that. Look, this is an opportunity to ask questions. I will address them on anything involving college football. It doesn't have to be a specific conference related. You can ask anything that you'd like to. College football, NFL, we'll certainly address it. And so we encourage it. How do you do that? Go to LandryFootball.com, click on follow Chris on Twitch, and we will, it'll get you right there. Twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football is the other way that you can find us. So if you would, join us there, and we're excited to talking about football with you. The breakdowns of all of these games, what happened last week, what we anticipate happening this week, we're going to have for you over at LandryFootball.com in grave detail, the breakdowns inside the film room. So appreciate you checking us out. Take advantage of the football season sale. The latest news and notes around the league. The linebacker James Thomas out of West Virginia has entered the transfer portal. Tough news out of Texas Tech. Running back Jadarius Townsend with that shoulder is going to miss the remainder of the season. Drew Estrada looks like they may get a little bit more playing time as well. And I don't know the status yet of Kalen Barnes, the corner from Baylor. May not be ready to go for this week's game against West Virginia. It looks like Terrell Bernard with the knee could be back. And I'm curious to see some other the updates. We, by the way, going to have all the updates inside the film room as to who's ready to go and who's not going to get ready to go for this week's game. So we've got it all for you. Join us in the chat room. I see Jeff and Rich Coates coming aboard. Rich is asking about which sit out in Texas and TCU. We're going to go through all the games, Rich. So we're going to have the look through, the see-through through all the games of what happened. And then Jeff, certainly, we talked a little bit about the Red River Shootout last hour. Even in the Pac-12 show, we're going to do that. You bet. And more specific questions, bring them on. That's what we want. So let's take a look at what's happened this past week. And I mentioned this, and I think I'll mention it again for those of you that didn't join us last hour. This is a real big week, the Texas-Oklahoma game, and maybe we'll start there. And since Jeff asked it, I'll address it now, even though we'll go back and look at the games from this past week. It's a big game in that, it's first year for Steve Sarkisian, so it would be a huge win for him. Not like an expected win, but statement win, if you will, would be huge. In terms of Oklahoma, it's with the offense not scoring at the prolific rate that they have, they seem a little bit more vulnerable. But are they? I think we'll find out a lot more this week. But if Oklahoma were to go down, I mentioned this last hour, what does it do for the Big 12? Does it put them in that same danger that the ACC and the Pac-12 are? Now, the ACC looks dead to me in terms of playoff caliber team. I wouldn't completely rule out the Pac-12 because a one-loss Oregon certainly has to be looked at with a win in Columbus. The Big 12 certainly alive. Would a one-loss Oklahoma be alive if they lose this week or somewhere along the line? Well, it depends. How does it look? How do they look the rest of the way? So I don't know that it's an eliminator, but certainly it put maybe the conference position in peril in terms of its playoffs possibilities. But we're going to get into it. As I mentioned, Oklahoma, Texas, one of 3 profile games that I'm doing on LandryFootball.com this week, along with Penn State, Iowa, and Stanford, Arizona State. We're going to break down all the games, though, as we do every week inside the conference. Oklahoma, Texas. Oklahoma, Texas. That's what we discussed a little bit, and we can do it a little bit more. Oklahoma, Kansas State this past week. It was a close win. Not real impressive win. They defeated Kansas State. This was the first time since 2018, folks. They won 37-31. I thought, though, it was their most complete performance. I hear this a lot. It's amazing. You can tell people don't really watch or look at highlights. They just assume things. They repeat what they hear about coaches, about players. Spencer Rattler played very well. And he's not played as poorly as people make it out to be. He's not putting out lightning numbers, but that's a lot more to the game than that. I thought he played well. I mean, not great, not as good as he can play. He had, he had an interception, but for the most part, he played clean. The thing that that Spencer doesn't do that other quarterbacks have done is they don't employ him in the run game. I think he's playing pretty well. Kennedy Brooks, I thought, did a good job. I thought Marvin Mims and Jeremiah Hall played well at receiver. Braden Willis did. Woods and Mario Williams and Drake Stoops stepped up. Really good performance there. I thought it was the best performance by the offensive line. There were some penalties, a couple of mishaps, but I thought it was the best group. I thought defensively they played well. Isaiah Thomas on the defensive line was really good. They didn't get great numbers, but I thought they did a good job making enough plays there. At linebacker, Brian Asamoah, Deshaun White, Shane Whittier, Ugobai were all involved, but wasn't pretty solid performance by the linebackers. And the defensive backs wasn't a great performance by them. The Kansas State offense, which has been pretty explosive all season, was able to create a few plays in the passing game. I don't think they played all that well from that end. From Kansas State standpoint, a lot of positives. The offense with Thompson under center looked the best it has all year. And I thought the special teams were good. And the defensive side, Kansas State they really struggled. Now I do think they're facing a good offense with more talent, but there were stretches where Kansas State looked really, really bad on offense, and Oklahoma could do whatever it wanted to do. Look, I think that they played hard. I thought they played well. I thought they did good things on offense to stay in the game. I thought there were a couple of miscues up front in the block game, but all in all, can't blame a whole lot there. With Oklahoma in the red zone, they were faced like 3rd and 1 from the 4, and they failed to pick up the yards. It likely would have gone for it, but Lincoln Riley got in the end zone, and the end around, they were a little bit out of position. I thought they did some good things in goal line defense. Um, but all in all, decent job of stringing out plays here there. Um, but it's a little bit um, short in terms of in terms of overall talent and overall defensive capabilities. Third downs were key. I know Kansas State was trailing. I think it was 10 in the third quarter. Game was still very much up for grabs. While the defense was bending all day, they did some. It was a 3rd and 14. Oklahoma came out in an empty set, and K State showed pressure. The rush five got good pressure, and you had to backpedal, and he was able to work inside the Yeast, the safety. I thought Rattler did a good job against that defense, even when K State was able to bring some pressure and make some plays on it. Um, Keenan Garbers is a special player for K State. He's a fast player. Um, Done a really, you know, the best you can to get a guy like that in the game as much as possible. Um, you know, uh, yeah, I think that's kind of my initial thoughts on the game. I think that when I look at this Kansas State team, I do like the direction. I like their organization. I like their fight. Um, I think I think Chris does a really good job of understanding kind of what you have to do there, but certainly getting more and developing more players, particularly on the defensive side, is going to be the key. The team that's really not getting enough praise for how they're playing, and let's see where it takes them. I don't know that it's going to go where some people think it may go, but Oklahoma State's playing well, and I was most impressed by their performance over Baylor, 24-14, getting it done. Um, I thought Sanders um, struggled, turned the football over. Wasn't all that impressive in that regard, but they found a way to win. And when you lose the turnover battle like they did, and you still win, that's a statement in and of itself. It's not a good statement on how you turn the football over, but the defense stepped up. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Um, the reward still outweighs the risk with Spencer Sanders. Um, it's going to be interesting to see because with the way they're playing on defense, they've got to protect the football a little bit better. But they do believe in Spencer Sanders. They don't believe in anyone else, and they see there's maybe some liability, but not enough to make the switch is what they're telling me there. The defense has been really good. Baylor's offense came into this game. They were scoring like 42 points a game and 275 yards rushing a game, throwing it 220 yards. The first 8 offensive drives for Baylor ended in punts. Um, Baylor is just 3 of 15 on third downs, 1 of 3 on fourth downs. Really getting off the field was very impressive what they were able to do defensively. They got a bye week, Oklahoma State does, and let's see what they can do with fixing some of the things on offense. They've got Texas and Iowa State on the 16th and 23rd. And I believe they're both on the road. So quite a stretch coming up for them. That's really kind of where the rubber meets the road here. Let's see those, how they navigate those 2 games. For Baylor, tough loss. The Baylors were down 14-0 going into halftime. Next to nothing on offense in the first 30 minutes. So they just weren't able to do a lot. We just talked about Oklahoma State's defense, but there was some mistakes on the offensive side that I think they need to work through. The running game, the main issue that Baylor had was in the run game. They didn't run well, and that is what's kind of helped them get off to their good start, 4-0 this year. And it didn't quite come together. They were not able to mesh the run and the pass game together. The play action pass is what they're trying to work through, and you can't run it. You're having a hard time, and they did. Oklahoma State really did a good job there of thwarting their run game. So we'll see how this plays out for them going forward. Texas Tech, nice win against West Virginia. It was remember, a 70-35 loss to Texas to beat West Virginia. Tyler Schaff, who one of the guys asked about last show, is injured in Texas Tech. They've had a couple of injuries, but that was impressive to get beat as bad as they did last week to come back, go to Morgantown. It's really interesting. It didn't reach the 30-point mark, but really, really impressive. No touchdown passes, no interceptions at the quarterback position. They were not the difference here. They had 3 sacks, but they were in control most of the game. The running game was solid. They didn't get a ton of yards, but they're very solid. They controlled the ball, possessed the ball well enough to control the game. There were no touchdowns thrown in, and not much stress put in the defense with the passing game, but they were functional enough. It was nothing special. It was really a good job against a pretty good defense that West Virginia has. Excuse me. That they managed to kind of keep off balance a little bit, even though they didn't score a ton of points. So I thought it was a really good effort by the staff getting them ready to play. But it's a disappointing game for West Virginia. They didn't run the football well enough, particularly off that left side of that offensive line where I thought they had some real advantages in this game. I thought they had some real opportunities to attack Reggie Pearson in this game. They didn't do that enough. I'm not seeing enough out of this offense. I thought Doge, outside of 2 or 3 plays, played well for him. Pretty good defense. This is a game that was a disappointing game for them because this is the game they probably should have won, and it's kind of one of those that kind of stains, which is a pretty good season for them. Texas, somebody asked about Texas and beating TCU. It was 32-27. TCU's second consecutive loss. Bijan Robinson had a career day. He's running the football very well. A lot of it is, he's running against weaker defense. He's running the football well. 2 scores. Casey Thompson is playing very well for them. They've got the quarterback employed in the run game. It's really been impressive how they're doing it. See, what they're doing is I'm watching them is they're helping their defense by playing the type of complementary ball that you need. Run the football, attack defenses, and keep your defense fresh and give yourself maximum rest and adjustment time. And they're doing a very good job with it. Robinson has been outstanding with some big plays, but the way he's able to control the game. And then Casey Thompson has been really good. So, look, they got too many penalties. They gave up an 85-yard kick return to open the game. Some pass protection issues, which they're camouflaging. So those are some issues we need to look forward to as they play Oklahoma this week, how they're able to deal with it. How well can they get Bijan Robinson and Thompson? By the way, if you don't know, that's Charles Thompson's son, the great Oklahoma quarterback that's obviously playing for Texas. So I'm curious to see how they're able to get the running game going against Oklahoma, or can they? Going to be a lot of fun. I think the biggest difference I see from the early part of the year is the play of Thompson. I think that it's opened up things for Cade Brewer at tight end. It's opened up things for the passing game. Now defensively, look, they didn't do a very good job defending Zach Evans. But they were able to create 3 turnovers and nearly had a 4th. And that was the big difference in coming up with enough stops in a close game. That was the difference. So I'm curious to see how this plays out. I'm curious to see how the defense holds up against Oklahoma. And can they possess the football enough to get it done? Iowa State dominated Kansas as you thought they might. It's been a disappointing year for Iowa State, losing a couple of games in which didn't look like they were likely going to lose, but they're back on track. Kansas will help you do that. They're starting to run the football a little bit better, be a little bit more balanced. Kansas, is we know, is not very good. They really struggled on defense, both run and pass defense. Offensively, they're not very good. Those are really a workmanlike performance. So this week, obviously, the big game is Oklahoma, Texas. That's going to be the focal point. West Virginia, Baylor is going on at the same time at 11 a.m. It is kind of a short group. I'm going to look here. TCU, Texas Tech as well. And as we look through to make sure I don't miss anybody, it is a little bit bye-weekish for this. So Baylor's got West Virginia. Iowa State's got a bye. Kansas has got a bye. Kansas State has got a bye. Oklahoma's got Texas, as you know. Oklahoma State has a bye. TCU is Texas Tech. And again, so that's the games of the weekend. So you don't have got the big one in the Red River Shootout, and then West Virginia Baylor and TCU Texas Tech are the ones that are interesting. Rock asks, Cincinnati almost has to have a letdown. If so, does Temple have enough to take advantage? No, Temple is not playing very well. Like, you play poorly enough, anything can happen. But this is not the typical team. Jeff says, can you break down the difference in Lincoln's air raid versus Mike Leach's air raid, and why is Lincoln more successful? First of all, the air raid moniker is not really what people think. There are versions, and there's tentacles of Lincoln doesn't really run air raid stuff. There's some of the principles. You hear me say this all the time, that there's no scheme that wins. It's your ability to create some things that will work, and they're often monikered with a name, but it's how you evolve and adjust. The only person that really runs an air raid as the true air raid is Mike. No one else does. Not Kingsbury with the Cardinals, not Lincoln. The closest thing would be Graham Harrell at USC. But the difference is Lincoln will not patient enough, in my opinion, but they'll focus on the running game a lot more. They'll work deeper, layered passing game, whereas Mike doesn't have nearly as many route concepts. There's a lot of concepts with routes, but a lot of their routes are a lot of in cuts and a lot of crossers, which you have that in Lincoln's, but with Lincoln does a lot more. The reason why Lincoln has been more successful is he recruits better and gets better players, and he coaches it better because he's got a more broader view of how to approach offenses and how to work the running game, work vertical passing game, work RPOs. He does a lot of things, whereas Mike just does one thing, and it works or it doesn't. He doesn't adjust. If you can adjust to it, you're fine. But there's a misnomer. Mike doesn't really outcoach you. Mike does what he does, and you either know how to match it, and you have the personnel to match it, and you have the patience to match it, or you don't. But he doesn't. It's not like, well, you do this to him, and he's going to change. He doesn't change. So that's the big difference. The players of the week inside the Big 12, I went ahead with B. John Robinson offensively, Texas. Colin Schooner, the linebacker, Texas Tech, really good player. I thought Cameron Dicker and Jonathan Garby did a good job kicking the football for Texas and Texas Tech. I thought Jalen Warner of Oklahoma State did a really good job. He's really, really been good. So those are the guys that jumped out at me, and we've got that breakdown. Again, each and every detailed breakdown of every Big 12 game from this past week is over in at LandryFootball.com in our Big 12 breakdowns. And then we're going to have the previews upcoming this week as well. Hey, appreciate Jeff and Rock and Rich and Jeffrey joining us on the show today. Spread the word about what we're doing if you would. Check out LandryFootball.com. Get a membership there. Take advantage of the football season sale if you would, and spread the word about what we're doing there. And then sign up for Big 12 football and beyond. If you like the show, we appreciate you doing that. That's going to be the whole key for the analytics and whether we keep the show free or put it behind a paywall or continue to do it at all. These shows, we're kind of trying them out to see what level of interest. And so spreading the word is something that we're hoping that you can help us do during this football season. So we appreciate you joining us. I'd see you over at LandryFootball.com later today. I've got Alabama football with Ryan Fowler, and I've got the Landry Football Podcast, which we'll get into some stuff there as well at 5 p.m. Central Time on that show. Appreciate you joining us. Have a great one. Talk to you later, everybody.